Hello and welcome back to my channel. If the lighting is a bit weird, I do apologise. It's later in the evening now. Also, if I'm looking a little bit hot and bothered, I'm actually surrounded by boxes because we're moving house soon. So everything's a little bit chaotic. Today we're going to be talking about the reptile community and some of the things that I don't like about this. I will probably do a part 2. I don't want this video to be like hideously long because I feel like there are a lot of things wrong with this community. But I also do think it's a great community. There are just some things that we as kind of a whole group need to watch out for, learn from, and I think could be improved. So the first thing that I really want to talk about are Facebook groups with hideously rude admin or, disrespectful, rude and unhelpful people in general on Facebook groups. I guess this goes for comments on videos and things as well, but in particular lately, I have seen an awful lot of disgusting behaviour, particularly from admin actually, on Facebook groups regarding the care of or information on exotic pets. I myself am a member of a ball python group that was actually started by someone who was fed up with seeing this, so it's more of a safe space for people, especially those that are brand new to the hobby and just want to ask questions. And I'm also a member similarly to a bearded dragon group. Now, all of you know I don't have a snake yet. I have lots of experience, but I also really want to be kind of ahead of the game with that stuff and be members of groups so that I can educate myself further from lots of different sources before I actually get one full time. The behaviour that goes on in these are absolutely disgusting. I have seen people post in my groups other conversations that have gone on in other groups that they've left. I have witnessed firsthand on a thread that I was in a discussion with people being disgustingly rude to each other, and I don't understand it. To me, there are no stupid questions when you are talking about the care of your animals. If you are asking a stupid question, and you are a beginner, it's not stupid. Everyone that joins a group or is asking a question should be praised. Their aim is clearly to better their husbandry, to get really clued up before they get this animal, or to improve the conditions that their animals are living in right now. No question should be completely berated. There is absolutely nothing wrong with asking questions to better the care of your animals, and rather than completely berating, embarrassing and being disgusting towards people that are asking questions that you feel are fairly obvious, it's just not acceptable behaviour. We are not at school, we are adults, there is no need for it, and this should be a safe community because at the end of the day, all we want to do for our animals is provide the best care we possibly can and to avoid any kind of poor health or anything like that. And it should be a safe space for everyone to learn from each other, talk about our different experiences, and help each other look after our pets. It's not that difficult. I get very passionate about these things, particularly as someone that was hideously bullied at school to the point of like having rubbish bins tipped over my head. And here in the UK, it's actually illegal to cyberbully. You can actually receive prison time for it, and that's exactly how it should be. But that doesn't stop people from behaving disgustingly on the internet, and that is something that we all just need to stamp out, as far as I'm concerned. So that's my first pet peeve, is generally people, particularly in Facebook groups of late that I've seen, completely berating newbies for not knowing their stuff, even though they're just trying to ask questions and learn from you guys. The next one that I am very passionate about, this is going to be a very ranty video, I do apologise. I am normally a very perky, happy, chilled person, but these things really annoy me because I think they're really important. When we were talking about animal welfare, or potential mental health of other humans because people are being horrible, like it's just not nice and it really riles me up, so sorry. Viral videos that are supposedly cute. This is one I see all the time. I have been a person that just thought it was cute and had no idea about what that animal must be going through. Examples of this are putting leopard geckos in toy cars and driving them around, putting bearded dragons sat on their tail so they look like they're sitting like a human. These things are not cute, they're not funny, they are cruel, they are animal cruelty. It is so, so dangerous to be doing some of these things to your pets. Putting a little witch's hat on them or something for Halloween, although probably like not the greatest experience for your animal, is not going to do them any harm for a few seconds to snap a photo. Putting them on their tail when they're a lizard is going to suffocate them. That is just not acceptable behaviour. Your animals don't know what's going on either. They are innocent little beings that have no idea why you're doing that to them. They will feel threatened, they will be scared, and not only is it bad for their spine and their organs in general, but it's also really stressful for them, which again can cause all sorts of problems if that's something that's happening to them regularly. It's not fair, it's not cool, it's not funny, and most importantly, it's not cute. The next thing that I want to talk about is something that I believe Go Herping actually made a full video about. I will link that down below, I'll put it up here somewhere for you. And this is with regards to people on the internet in general asking pet YouTubers, animal YouTubers for veterinary advice. Now, there is a massive difference between noticing something's a little bit off, or there's a bit of stuck shed, or maybe they haven't eaten a salad or something, or your snake's a little bit aggressive or something like that, and asking for advice. But if there's something really wrong with your animal and you've noticed it for a little while, you need to take it to a vet. We are not vets. We cannot prescribe you medication. It's also really difficult to diagnose, even if I was a vet or anyone else who gets asked these questions was a vet, through 1 or 2 pictures and not a lot of context. You know your animal's best, and if you've noticed something that you're really worried about, take it to the vet. I watched Go Herping's video, and it's a pet peeve of me as well. I get asked quite a lot of advice, like whether bearded dragons are good for children, etc. That's totally different, that's fine. I don't mind giving you a little, you know, spiel about what I would recommend for a beginner reptile, or, you know, whether they need to be supervised and all that kind of stuff. But when there's something wrong with your animal and their health is at risk because you don't want to take them to the vet, and you expect YouTubers that are not on their phones permanently or looking at the messages permanently to fix your problem for you, that's not good, and it puts your animal's health in danger. And as a responsible pet owner, if you are noticing something that you are really worried about, you need to take that to an exotic vet. That is your only option, and that is the first thing you should be doing. When I watched Go Herping's video on this matter, he actually received a bundle of messages from one specific person asking about, I think it was like either their frog or their turtle, I can't remember, and it died. While they were waiting for a reply, it died because they didn't take it to the vet. They were waiting for a reply from him, and this is obviously a very quick summary. They were disappointed and basically blamed him for their pet dying. If there is something that wrong with your pet, take it to the vet. Just take it to the vet. The next thing I want to talk about is the kind of encouragement, I guess, from some of these bigger YouTubers, some of whom are also breeders, to get yourself the cheapest, barest setup possible. Now, I don't have an issue with you using tubs or whatever you think is best for your animal. I prefer glass vivariums unless it's for something that needed extra humidity. For example, where I live, I would probably end up using a tub for a ball python, especially a hatchling. To each their own. It's not something I actually have a problem with at all. It just depends on the animal and your own personal circumstances and what they were in before you got them. However, I do have an issue with huge YouTubers giving you information and basically encouraging you to scrimp on care and setups. I was watching one recently for a hatchling ball python, and no thermostat was mentioned for a heat mat. That's really dangerous. It's potentially catastrophic, in fact. And it's just not something that we should be encouraging people to do. You want to not do the bare minimum for your animal, but you should be doing the most for your animal. It's very different if you have a breeding setup and you have hundreds of animals. You're not going to be putting loads of, you know, live planted tanks in a room. It's just not going to happen. But when you are like a pet owner who is not housing hundreds of animals, you should not be just doing the bare minimum, in my opinion. You should be doing the best you can for that animal. And if all you can do is the bare minimum and you can't afford to put a thermostat in there, which is one of the most important things for anything that needs some sort of heat control, then you shouldn't be getting it in the first place, in my opinion. That is not good enough. And these big YouTubers going, oh, you can do this like this, and not even meeting minimum requirements for some of these animals either for sizing, is not acceptable. They have a large audience, they have a massive responsibility to do right by any animals, and if you're being watched and people love you and you own loads of animals and you know you're a big kind of reptile YouTuber, you are going to inspire lots of other people, which is brilliant, but you need to inspire them to do it right. The last thing I'm going to talk about is something to do with breeders. Now, I know I have at least a couple of breeders that watch my channel. Hello, if you're watching. This is something that does happen, unfortunately, and it's definitely something that responsible breeders don't do. So if you are a breeder and you're watching, this is not necessarily for you. But I feel like one of the things that I hate the most in this community is a lack of responsibility from breeders. So this, I feel, falls into two categories. The first category being selling things like anacondas, reticulated pythons and snapping turtles to people that clearly don't know what they're doing. So you know, and not asking enough questions about the people that you are selling animals like that to. It's irresponsible, really dangerous, and it just feeds into the fact that these things get dumped, set free into the wild. It's dangerous for the animal as well, obviously, and it's really just something that we should be doing better. Those things should be reserved for advanced keepers who know exactly what they're doing, and that can keep them for their life, basically. I know sometimes that's really difficult to do, and I accept, like, it doesn't always happen. You could have a change in circumstance you weren't expecting. That's totally different. But things like that should not just be sold to someone who goes, oh, that's so cool. You know, a green anaconda is tiny when they're a hatchling, but they are a potentially dangerous animal if you don't know what you're doing. And the second thing where I feel like this is an issue with breeders and lack of responsibility in general is breeders that lie about genetics or being captive bred. So Adam from TA Exotics actually did a brilliant video covering how you should be really careful when you're buying an animal that's het for something. Often you can pick up males or females that are het for a certain gene, which means that when you go to breed the animal, something that is not a visible gene in that animal straight away, they can still produce offspring with that gene visible in their offspring, if that makes sense. I hope I explained that right. There we go. This is something that is quite common, unfortunately. People will charge you way more for a certain animal because it's het for something, and that leaves you, unless you get the proof that it's het for something, i.e. you can see the lock for the parents, they have the kind of correct paperwork and stuff to show you, then you could be getting ripped off, and that's not fair on the buyer. And also kind of tied to that is breeders that lie about the health of their animal. So you do see this quite commonly, and I think there should be tighter regulations on it, but you'll see if you've been to any shows or anything that sometimes there are vendors selling animals with mites. Not only is it dangerous to bring that animal into a show where lots of other vendors have very clean, healthy collections, and that is disgustingly unfair, but it's just not good practice to eradicate that before going anywhere near a show, or before you sell that on. If you are a beginner, you should be checking for that stuff anyway. I can make a video on things you should check for before you buy an animal. But it is something that if you're a newbie and you didn't think to do that on the day, and you then get it home and, you know, the mites get on your clothes, or you go near your other animals if you've got them, they're really difficult to get rid of. And treating mites, although it's quite a straightforward process, if you don't know what you're doing, using the stuff you need to treat mites can be quite dangerous for your animal. So it's just something, as a beginner especially, I wouldn't ever want to deal with, but also it's a pain in the ass and it's bad practice, full stop. Another point under breeder responsibility is not explaining whether your animal is captive bred or not, or lying about it. Most people will have kind of ethical issues surrounding the captive bred versus wild caught animals. I realise that some are not able to be captive bred, or it's very difficult, and a lot of breeders maybe are working in a conservational type manner, and therefore those are the only circumstances under which I personally believe that wild caught is acceptable. I would never knowingly buy an animal that was not captive bred, and therefore that information is really important to a lot of people, just as it would be to myself. So breeders in general, I'm sure, are brilliant. I know a handful that I would trust implicitly without asking a load of questions. I don't encourage you to do that. Always ask the important questions. For the majority of people that do their research and go to shows and ask all the right questions, etc, etc, like, you'll be fine. Breeders inherently aren't bad at all. Just that you want to be making sure that you are doing your due diligence when you're purchasing an animal to make sure that your breeder checks out. Unfortunately, for the majority of breeders, like, they're brilliant, they're thorough, they are giving you the best animal they can that is, you know, really healthy, doesn't have mites. But there are a very small percentage that if you don't ask the right questions, you don't check for mites, and you don't think about the things that I've mentioned, that could sell you something that's going to die, is really unhealthy, or that potentially has a disease, or you don't know what you're getting. I think we're done with my ranty video. If you have had any bad experiences, I would really love to hear your thoughts down below, whether that be in Facebook groups or, you know, buying animals that you weren't told about, etc, etc. That would be really helpful. I'm just always curious to see what other people's experiences are. As I said, this community is, on the whole, really brilliant, supportive, wonderfully educational community. And I hope that the breeders that watch me understand that this is not pointed directly at any of you guys. It's just one of those things that if you're not careful, and I'm sure you're aware, this can happen to you. As I said, please do go and check Adam's video. I will leave a link to his channel up here. Go and subscribe to him and give him a thumbs up. Tell him I sent you. He makes some really educational videos on ball pythons, or royals if you're here in the UK, and he's definitely worth a watch. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please do give it a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button if you're not part of the Janes family. And me and Gary will see you in the next video. Okay, bye.